Marty Richards with Greater Richland Tourism here today. And typically this time of year, we give you a little bit of an update of what's happening up at Oakwood Fruit Farm so that when fall hits, you can kind of expect what the crop will be and things that'll be going on up on top of the hill. However, today we have a special little scene into the cicada report, quite honestly, because that is a concern for Oakwood along with everything else you deal with throughout the year. So this year you have yet another issue to worry about. So joining me today, I have Steve Lewis from Oakwood Fruit Farm. He's going to give us a little bit of an explanation of cicadas, what they've seen, the problem they pose, and then also we'll talk a little bit more about the year as well. But I know everybody's talking about cicadas. I thought, that shouldn't be a big deal for Oakwood, but maybe I was wrong on that. So help us understand that concern.
Yeah, so, the big talk on the news is, they don't do any damage. They're not feeding on anything when they're out. But that's not true if you're growing trees, and especially fruit trees. So what happens is they've laid their eggs, and the eggs have hatched and gone into the ground for 17 years. Now those eggs have grown, and they come back out of the ground, and then they shed their outer skin, and then they will start mating in 4 or 5 days. That's when you hear them singing. You'll come outside and you hear that loud humming. And then what they do is once they mate, the female will crawl up a tree and she'll lay her eggs in the bark they like wood about the size of a pencil. So typically on an apple tree, that's 2, 3, 4-year-old wood. And when they lay those eggs in there, those eggs hatch under the bark, and then they feed in there. Well, if there's enough eggs laid in there, they can kill that growth. And you end up losing, especially on these smaller trees that we grow, we're afraid we're going to lose a tremendous amount of growth and set us back a long ways on their growth.
And really, to put it in perspective, even 17 years ago, this wasn't that big of a concern for you because you really were on the old style apple tree at that point.
Yes.
Correct?
The only thing we were worried about then is trees that were maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. They had a lot of small growth on them. Well, now most of the growth on these trees is that size. So we really don't know whether they'll leave a little older growth alone or they're still going to go after everything that particular size. And they'll only be in the places where there was woods or apple trees before. So if we have new orchard that was corn and beans back then, they weren't in the soil then because they didn't fall out of a tree and go into the ground there. So it's just the stuff that's been in a continual cycle that we're worrying about. And we just now, it's the 4th of June, and about a week ago is when we first started seeing them coming out. They've been a little slower than what we anticipated them coming. I think some of that has to do with the weather, because they don't come out till it gets to a certain ground temperature.
Yep.
And so we think with this warmer temperature, it's gonna crank them up, and we're gonna start to see the big numbers that they're talking about. But we probably got at least a month more of dealing with them.
Okay. It was a strange spring, it really was.
It was.
How did that go for you?
Yeah, so we were way ahead. At one point, we were probably 5 to 6 weeks ahead of normal with the weather and seeing the bud break when we would, normally it would be in mid-April or something, but we started seeing bud break way back in March.
Yeah.
And then once that genie's out of the bottle, there's no going back. And so luckily we cooled off and slowed down enough that it held things off, and we never got cold enough to get any frost damage. Now, we did get a couple of nights where we got pretty darn cold, but we were lucky enough to be just a few days back enough that we weren't exposed enough that we really didn't see any damage to speak of.
So really, you've kind of dodged the hazard there a little bit. So spring, and then you got rain that last year you didn't have.
We got beautiful rain.
Which, for you, you're on the hillside, it drains fairly well.
Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of rain, a lot of the local farmers are kind of howly. But for you, it drains fairly well, doesn't it?
Yeah, we always have some spots there's always some wet spots here and there, but we've addressed those as we go, and these new plantings we can put drainage tile in. So the most part, we're pretty good. It does make, some of the diseases, some fungus diseases that we worry about a little more difficult to control, but it's nothing different from other years. Last year was very abnormal because we were so dry. It was a breeze to control them. So,
awesome. Well, that sounds great. That's a really cool report and really gives us some great detail on cicada and concern with the Oakwood. I would not think about that. That makes complete sense.
Yes.
That could be a major issue for you down the road.
Yes.
So, but thanks so much for that.
Problem. Thanks for coming out.
No, you bet. I really appreciate it. For Greater Richland Tourism, I'm Marty Richards. Let's everybody have a great day.